Welcome to my lesson. Today's topic is correcting learners. We can correct learners sometimes when they have made a mistake and we want to show them that something is wrong. There is a range of strategies and techniques we can indicate that there is a mistake. There are two types of correction, oral and written. Oral correction. The first technique is called timelines. We can draw a timeline on the board to show learners the relationship between the use of a verb tense and the time or aspect. This technique is particularly useful for mistakes such as, I have seen that film 2 weeks ago. The timeline to show this mistake might look like this. I saw that film 2 weeks ago. The next technique is called finger correction. Finger correction is a feedback method used to demonstrate errors in spoken English. We can indicate where the mistake is without speaking and prompt learners to self-correct. Gestures or facial expressions. Gestures. Teachers might gesture backwards with their hands to show students they haven't used the verb in the past. Students often use their own pronouns. For example, she walked your dog. You can point to yourself with a look of shock or surprise. Facial expressions. When a student makes a mistake, you can use an exaggerated facial expression to signal the mistake. Phonemic symbols. When learners are familiar with phonemic symbols, we can use them to focus on mispronounced sounds by pointing at the relevant symbols on the phonemic chart or writing the relevant symbol on the board. Echo-correcting. Echo-correction, which is repeating the error with emphasis and using facial expressions or gesture. These correction techniques avoid giving the right answer and encourage the learner to correct themselves. Identifying the mistake. Sometimes we need to identify the mistake by focusing learners' attention on it and telling them there is a problem. This technique is more commonly used with errors. We might say, I assure, to indicate that there is a problem. We could then go on to provide the correct version. Delayed correction. Delayed correction techniques are corrections a teacher uses sometime after a learner has made an error. This is usually done to avoid interrupting fluency practice. Also, there are other reasons also. Delayed correction contrasts with correction techniques such as reformulation and echoing, which occur immediately on the spot. Peer and self-correction. Peer correction involves learners correcting each other's mistakes. Self-correction is when learners correct their own mistakes. Peer and self-correction help learners to become independent of the teacher and more aware of their own learning needs. Ignoring errors. We ignore errors that are above the learner's language level. For example, an elementary learner telling us about what he did at the weekend might make an incorrect guess about how to talk about past time in English. We do not correct this mistake. Because the past simple is not a tense, the learner has been taught yet. Reformulating. Reformulation is a technique consisting what the other has just said, using the same words or rephrasing in a more concise way using other terms. For example, the child says, we go to the zoo yesterday, and the teacher responds, yes, that's right, we went to the zoo yesterday. Recasting. A recast is a technique used in language teaching to correct learners' error in such a way that communication is not obstructed. To recast an error, an interlocutor will repeat the error back to the learner in a corrected form. For example, student, I want eat. Teacher, what do you want to eat? Here in this sentence, in this example, the teacher is making the correction to the student's speech, adding to, but also extending the learning by asking a question. The next type of correction is written correction. This is a common tool to optimize learning opportunities from mistakes learners make in written work to encourage editing stages of process writing. Every teacher uses his own written correction codes. So, for example, in this table you see different symbols, and these symbols mean have different meanings. So, for example, WO means that there is a wrong word order. S means that there is a mistake in spelling. T means that the tense is wrong. Okay, we can continue this list, but the first time you intend to use the correction code, explain to your learners what you are going to do and why. Give them a copy of the code and talk through each one. Then give them the worksheet. Ask the learners to correct the mistakes on it using the code. So here in this lesson, we analyze a different kind of techniques and the strategies. But in conclusion, I would like to say that we rarely correct all the mistakes that learners make, because correcting all of them can be demotivating and confusing for students. So here are some activities for you. So the first one is try using different correction techniques and strategies in your classes and write your reflections on how the learners reacted to them and how effective you think they were. The second is observe one or more group mates and notice what correction techniques they use. So this is all for today's lesson. Thank you for your attention.